I'd love to be with you guys.
Right
This is
on.
great.
You are here to swoop in some votes, and I understand that polling might indicate that that is in fact happening, and things are at least trending in the direction you want them to go. Tell us about that, Susan.
Well, remember that jungle primary, as they called it? It was a true jungle, 29 names, and I think a lot of our voters just had trouble trying to figure out who to vote for. So naturally, the incumbent gets the most votes, but our indication right now is that she is under 50%, and that is lethal for a longtime incumbent this point in the election. So we believe that the harder we work, the more we get our message out, the more we can persuade our voters to come to our side and be sure to fill out their ballots.
Absolutely.
Then we can win.
How do you think Washington's Republican voters are feeling? Are they activated and energized like you'd like to see?
Everywhere I go, it feels like a groundswell. And I'm talking about people who are your everyday working men and women, those who are affected by policy. You know, so many times the people who are talking at us are not affected. You know, they've got enough money that the Seattle City Council can do anything and they won't feel it, really. But I tell you, the rest of us do. And I care so deeply for the people of this state. I've met them over the years when I ran the state party, and then now as a candidate. I've been in every corner of the state multiple times. And I tell you, the people of this state are worth fighting for. And that's why I'm in this race. I want to make sure that the policies we embrace going forward are going to help them and not hurt them.
But it's almost like Maria Cantwell, seeking a fourth term, has just basically started to take things for granted is my concern. I mean, when is she here? Who does she talk to?
Yep.
Has she agreed to any debates with you so that people will get a chance to see you side by side?
It's absolutely stunning. I'm the strongest candidate to go up against her since she started running for re-election. And it's stunning to me that she's refusing to debate. And I think she's afraid. She also, we just found out from the Seattle Times, the normal routine is you sit down together, the Republican and Democrat, and you're interviewed together for an endorsement. And the Seattle Times makes their decision after that interview. And the interview is posted because it's videotaped. And do you know she's refusing to sit next to me for an interview? And the Seattle Times is complicit. They've allowed her to make that choice. Can you imagine if I had said I refuse to sit down next to her, you have to do separate interviews? They would have done a story about it.
Right. How do you feel that what's going on nationally is impacting this race, and do you think it will in November?
Well, remember those days. I spent 25 years as a TV news journalist, so I like to ask questions, and I like to ask, just everyday folks the question. And this week I've been asking everybody I can how they feel about what's going on with the Kavanaugh situation and the Supreme Court nominee. And do you know, to a person, I have not found a single person who's not angry about this. It's become a spectacle. It's embarrassing the country. You know, here we have a woman who's been definitely mistreated by the Democratic Party. She asked for anonymity. They leaked her name. She was forced to come forward. She didn't want that, and they're just using her. If they believed her, they would have investigated when they got the information. They ignored it, and then they brought it out after everything was basically closed and we were ready for the vote. And so, of course, we should hear from her, the accuser, and of course we have to hear the defense of Judge Kavanaugh. He has to be able to hear what the charges are as she brings them, and he has to be able to defend himself. That's fairness. That's justice. And it seems like it doesn't matter if you're male or female. People are getting the fact that the Democrats are playing with our system in a really egregious way.
A couple of key areas that Washingtonians are concerned about, how you guys might approach the job differently.
I am delighted to be able to answer that question because there are stark differences between us. And she has a record that is the reason she doesn't want to face me in a debate. But here's one that might interest your viewers or your listeners and the voters of the Yakima Valley. She votes every time to send our young men and women into combat. There isn't a combat proposal she hasn't affirmed. But she also has refused to support appropriations, in other words, the spending to support our troops, to make sure they're well equipped, that they're trained, that they're ready. And so her inability to treat our young men and women who've stepped up to fight for this country as human beings that are not just there to go be forced into war, but also have to be equipped and trained and made ready for the cause is really astounding. And so we want people to understand that she's careless with our military. And another issue that's really important to the people of the Yakima Valley is healthcare. There is no question we're in a situation right now where our healthcare situation is confusing.
At best.
We are trying to get rid of the bad parts of Obamacare and fix the rest so that we, the Republicans, of course, support those with pre-existing conditions. No question. That is important in any health care insurance plan. But the Democrats are insisting that you've got to hang on to all those bad elements of Obamacare in order to do that. It's just not true. And Maria Cantwell has jumped onto this bandwagon with the Democrats of Medicare for all.
Yeah.
That is absolutely a false statement. We all know that Medicare for all means Medicare for none, and that we would end up with socialized medicine, which is like the VA without a conscience. And so, at least with the VA, we're always trying to improve it for the sake of keeping our promises to our veterans. But can you imagine the U.S. government controlling our health care? It's a scary thought, and that's what the Democrats are promoting. I'm promoting free market health care that allows the shopping of insurance across state lines. Never been allowed before. We've got to do that in order to bring prices down, and for large groups of people, including those who are self-employed, to be able to find insurance plans that suit them. But they're grouped in such large numbers that the cost of the insurance is diminished substantially.
Another big issue for a lot of voters in eastern and central Washington, gun control. How do you feel about, the talk about assault weapons and gun control?
Well, I stand by the Second Amendment. I believe it's there for a purpose. It makes us unique in the world, that people have the right to defend themselves and to keep and bear arms. I stand with that and always will. I can understand, because of the tragedies that have occurred in schools and elsewhere, that people are concerned about the rampant use of guns for these terrible deeds that have been so tragic. But, what surprises me is the lack of clear thinking, because just because you come up with some initiative, which is going to be on the ballot, about forcing people to store their guns in safes, which we have guns at home. The hunting guns are in safes. But if we needed a gun for self-defense, what about an elderly single woman who has the capability to use a small gun and keeps it in her bedside table? If a robber breaks in and finds that gun and takes it, do you know she's liable, criminally liable under this new initiative? So I just can't support that. It's just, this is a vast and incredible state, and the people are what make it so rich. And that's what I find the best part about campaigning.
Well, I think you said it early on in the interview. The people of the state are worth it. They're worth fighting for. We deserve representation that makes sense, that would offer prosperity for the entire state, that people would be reminded that once you cross the hill, there's a whole another part of this state that needs to be considered and respected and included.
I love that word, prosperity. And I think that your listeners need to be reminded, if they don't vote up and down the ballot for prosperity, instead of turning back the clock, which my opponent, Maria Cantwell, has declared she would rescind the jobs and tax cuts, and we would end up back in that malaise of 8 years that we had under the Obama administration. We have got to vote for prosperity, because we have only begun to enjoy, and especially our ethnic communities with their low unemployment now for the first time in history. It's exciting that our African American communities are having jobs,
right,
so that they can have hope for their futures.
Recent announcement, jobless claims at a 49-year low. Come on, that is pretty amazing, and you're right.
Now we need training. We need federal programs that help train people for the jobs of the future.
Susan Hutchinson, I wish you the very best of luck. We're delighted that we get a chance to corner you when you come to Yakima on your busy schedule.
This is going to be a turnout election. We need them to turn out. The Yakima Valley voters have got to vote, which means they've got to grab that ballot, fill it out. I know there are a lot of things. Republicans tend to get hung up on not being able to answer every question on a ballot. Just, if you can't answer it, just skip it. But the key is voting for the people who are going to make sure your prosperity continues. And I'm one of them, and my opponent, Maria Cantwell, is not. So please vote for Susan Hutchinson, and go to susanforsenate.com, because there's so much information. I have 18 reasons, which are the 18 reasons that I think really affect the lives of of the folks here, and they can see what I stand for.
And it's Susan, the number 4,
Yeah.
Senate, right?
Yeah.
All right, Susan4Senate.com.
You know,
Have been and-
there's one more thing that might encourage people that maybe we should mention, and
Sure,
you can
go ahead.
put this in. So everywhere I go, people come up to me and say, I'm voting for you. And you would be astounded at how many Democrats say that to me. They'll say, I'm not even a Republican, but I'm voting for you because it's crazy here. We've got to change what's going on, and I'm going to vote for you. So I've had this over and over, particularly with our ethnic population, and they are seeing truth in big ways right now. I think because of the prosperity that we're enjoying and the joblessness, or the jobs that they've been able to access for the first time in years, decades perhaps. But also they've got a sense they want a change in leadership. They want somebody who will stand up and tell the truth. And so where I live in Seattle, I am surrounded by Democrats, but you'd be surprised at how many good people who've been lifelong Democrats are ready to switch and vote for me. So that should encourage everybody, Republicans and Democrats.
It should. I think another point with that is that while the nation is experiencing a level of prosperity that it hasn't enjoyed, Seattle has enjoyed it. But even people in Seattle now are seeing the ancillary crazy that is coming with the national scene over the prosperity that the rest of the nation's had. It's like, we're in Seattle, we got Boeing, we got Microsoft, we got whatever. So we've been fine all along, but man, we're getting nuts out here in how we're dealing with stuff. So even people who aren't necessarily as appreciative of the prosperity changeover because they've had it for a while have got to experience the crazy and say, time out for that. Right?
I hear that word all the time, crazy. And a woman came up to me last Saturday and she said, the things here are cray-cray, which is the way they talk about it in a younger generation.
right.
So,
right.
yeah, so cray-cray, crazy, however you want to say it, that's what it is.
Jackson's middle name is Cray Cray, actually, right, Jackson? Right. Yeah, okay. Susan Hutchinson, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
We wish you the best of good luck.